India becomes the fourth largest economy, but at what cost? Hello, friends, history has been made. The world's largest democracy, India, has just overtaken Japan to become the fourth largest economy in the world. A moment of pride? Absolutely. A sign of progress? Well, definitely not. Because behind this glittering GDP number lies a deeper story. A story of contradiction, of celebration, shadowed by inequalities and concerns. Because while India's economy surges ahead, millions of Indians are still struggling to even survive and meet their daily needs or necessities. So today we ask the uncomfortable question. India becomes the fourth largest economy, but at what cost? Let's discuss the economic milestone India overtakes Japan. So India's economic rise has been nothing short of extraordinary. In the early 1990s, India was just the 11th largest economy. In 2022, it overtook the UK to become fifth. And now, in 2025, India has surpassed Japan to become the fourth largest economy in terms of nominal GDP with a value of over $4.2 trillion. According to IMF projections, if the current trend continues, India could surpass Germany by 2027, making it the third largest economy in the world, just behind US and the China. So how did we get here? This GDP growth is driven by several factors such as strong domestic consumption. A young aspirational population is driving the domestic consumption, which has boosted the GDP growth. Next is a booming services sector growth in IT, fintech, digital platforms, etc. Next is the digital transformations like banking inclusion, UPI revolution, the internet revolution, where thanks to Geo, the internet data is still available at cheap price as compared to the other countries. Next factor is the infrastructure spendings which the government spends on highways, airports, digital connectivity, etc. So in short, India's economy is growing rapidly at over 6.5% annually in fiscal year 2025-26, even amid global slowdowns. So that is a good sign. But if we add another dimension of per capita, then you will know that the numbers alone do not give the right and the complete picture. And now let's discuss the core problems which India faces today. First is the GDP growth versus per capita reality. So, despite the $4.2 trillion economy, India's per capita income, which is the average annual income earned by any individual, is only $2.8 thousand, significantly lower than Japan's $33.9K and US's $89.1K. India has a huge 1.46 billion population, while Japan has only 123 million, making per capita comparisons shocking and highlights deep wealth inequality that exists in India. So even if India overtakes Germany or Japan in economic size, its per capita income still won't match anywhere close to the other top economies anytime soon. Now, if we factor in this metric of GDP per capita, suddenly things don't look so good or rosy. And it's even scary and essentially reveals the sad situation that India currently faces. Which brings us to the next topic, that is the widening inequality problem. So while India's economy and GDP grows, so does the gap between the rich and the poor. According to Oxfam, it's important to understand that the top 1% of India's population holds more than 40% of the total wealth. Yes, let that sink in for a moment, and let me repeat. The top 1% of India's population holds more than 40% of total wealth. Meanwhile, the bottom 50% own only 3% of nation's wealth as per World Inequality Report of 2022. Millions of Indians still live below the poverty line, especially in rural and tribal regions. About 80 crore Indians still receive free rations, exposing the mismatch between the economic rankings and the actual ground reality and hardships that millions of Indians face today. Also, the per capita income of bottom 95% is less than rupees 1 lakh a year, which signifies the mass poverty. This necessity of welfare schemes essentially highlights the failure of wealth trickling down to the masses. So this huge wealth, not even a fraction of this reaches the masses. So the result is that the rich are becoming richer and the poor are becoming poorer and weaker day by day, and that too at an alarming pace. And middle class is squeezing in between these two classes, with stagnating salaries, no or very little prospects of career growth, lack of employment opportunities or jobs even in both government or private sector. Reports of mass layoffs are also adding to the big problem. Now think about that. A billionaire buys a new private jet in Mumbai while a family in rural Bihar skips meals because they can't afford even onions. Here's a real example. In 2024, the combined net worth of just 9 Indian billionaires was more than the bottom 50 crore Indians combined. Now, this is definitely not growth. This is an imbalance. And inequality is not just about money. It also affects access to quality healthcare, education, clean water, security, and justice. Next problem is the jobless growth. So, one of the most troubling aspects of India's economic rise is the jobless nature of the growth. So, the economic growth is not translating into enough quality employment. So, despite all of the GDP gains, youth employment remains over 15% in urban areas. Among graduates, the rate is even higher. Women's participation in the workforce is shockingly low, at about 24%. Informal or unorganized sector dominates, with 90% of the workers lacking social security. So if they lose job tomorrow, they will have difficult time to make their ends meet without any social security schemes like provident fund or health insurance, etc. Next is the India's IT sector, a pillar of growth, which employs only 5 million people. So compare that to agriculture, which employs over 40% of Indians but contributes just 16% of the GDP. This mismatch is alarmingly dangerous. We are producing MBAs, engineers, and coders, but the job market isn't keeping up. Even government job exams like SSC and UPSC see millions of applicants for just a few hundred posts. Is this what an economic growth looks like? A generation that's educated and qualified, but unemployed and frustrated? Now let's understand the agrarian crisis. India still lives in rural areas and villages, and that too in large numbers. And in those villages, farmers are in distress. Agriculture employs 40% of India's population, but the contribution is only 16% of the GDP, like we discussed. And why is that? It is because of the small land holdings, the high cost of inputs, the low MSP or the minimum support price, which is set by the government for specific crops, and also the unpredictable weather. Also, there is an alarming issue of rising debts and loans, which are offered to farmers promised at cheaper rates, but then due to lack of education, they are often misled into accepting malicious agreements and either end up paying huge interest over their loans or they risk losing their land ownership altogether. Between 1995 and 2023, over 3 lakh farmers reportedly died by suicide due to debt and distress. Promised reforms in agriculture and MSP guarantees by the government still remain controversial and unresolved. So, if we want overall growth, we must ensure it's brought out evenly and equally across all sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, and services together, and not ignore any one of these. Now, let's discuss the urban boom, rural neglect, or the urban rural divide. So, while metro cities like Bengaluru, Mumbai, and Delhi shine, rural India still struggles with lack of rural infrastructure or sanitation, poor healthcare, low literacy, or limited job opportunities. Here's a contrast to understand the issue in perspective. In Mumbai's BKC or the Bandra Kurla complex, a 4 BHK apartment sells for a whopping 25 crore rupees. Just 200 kilometers away in a village in Maharashtra, children walk 5 kilometers daily to school with no electricity at home. This is not a gap. I'd say it's a huge crack, so to speak. Urban India is racing towards the future, while rural India is still stuck in the past. Bridging this divide is not just a moral responsibility, it's essential for sustainable growth and ensuring the development of the society. Next is the corporate growth versus public welfare. Big businesses have thrived under reforms like the PLI or the production linked incentive schemes, Make in India, and other tax cuts. So, are these policies skewed towards the capital and not labor? Private sector is often accused of enjoying preferential treatment in terms of obtaining cheap land, tax breaks, loan waivers, etc., while farmers and small businesses struggle with bureaucracy. India's corporate sector is booming. Look at Reliance, Tata, Adani, Infosys, Wipro. These are all world-class names, right? India now has about 100 unicorns, startups valued at over $1 billion. Stock market is touching record highs. But here's the flip side. Healthcare spending is just 2.1% of the GDP. Education spending hovers around 3% of GDP, below global average. Many government schools still lack toilets and clean drinking water. So while Indian stock market indices like Nifty and Sensex soar, millions still lack basic amenities. This raises a critical question. Is India becoming a corporate-friendly economy at the cost of being people-friendly? Yes, this is one question that we must answer. Next is the human development, which is still low. India ranks 132 out of 191 countries on the HDI or the UN Human Development Index. We lag behind in health and malnutrition, underfunded public health leading to poor life expectancy as well, poor quality education, gender inequality. Also, there's very limited access to clean drinking water and sanitation. So, economic gains are essentially not matching by the gains in health, education, or general well being of the people. Even our healthcare system, exposed brutally during COVID 19, is underfunded, underprepared, and overwhelmed. What's worse, despite being a digital powerhouse, we still have malnourished children, stunted growth, poorly educated children as well. So, what does true progress mean? True progress means a child in Jharkhand essentially gets the same quality education as a child in Gurugram. A mother in Bastar gets the same healthcare as one in Bengaluru. An old farmer in Bihar retires with dignity and not with debt. Now let's come to environmental trade-off or the cost of growth. So India's rapid growth has come with a heavy environmental price. Massive infrastructure push has led to deforestation, displacement and pollution. Forests in the Western Ghats and Northeast are being cleared for infrastructure. Look at the air quality in major cities among the world globally. Speaking of India, look at cities like Delhi, Mumbai and Kolkata. These are among the most polluted cities in the world. It is said that living one day in Delhi is equivalent to smoking 50 cigarettes a day. So you can imagine the severity of the issue and how it's impacting the health of the general people in the capital city of the country. Also, rivers like Yamuna and Ganga are choked with sewage and plastic, and government seems to have turned a blind eye on this situation as well. Then there are heat waves, droughts and floods are becoming more frequent. Also, sustainable development is often sidelined for the fast economic gains. The government pushes for smart cities, bullet trains, expressways. All are necessary, yes, but then at what cost? In the rush for development, tribals are displaced, ecosystems are destroyed, and air becomes toxic. Now ask yourself, what's the point of GDP growth if you can't even breathe the air or drink the water? Now let's come to geopolitical rise with strategic risks. As India rises economically, it also rises geopolitically. Economic power gives India a stronger global voice. India is a member of Quad, BRICS, SCO, and G20. So, India is a member of all of these organizations. We are expected to host major summits building global partnerships. So, we must understand that global power comes with global responsibility. But the rising dependence on imports like the oil and technology and also Chinese supply chains remain. India is now the world's largest importer of oil, creating energy insecurity. Our manufacturing depends heavily on Chinese components. Their quality or durability is a big question mark, but we still import Chinese parts in large numbers. Growth brings new foreign policy vulnerabilities and also global expectations. This is because India is now expected to lead the climate action, shape the global peace talks, provide economic aid, and influence geopolitics. But are we ready to shoulder these responsibilities? Well, definitely not, at least at this point of time. So, what's the conclusion? Growth, but for whom? So, becoming the fourth largest economy is indeed a historic moment, but the question remains, is this growth inclusive? Is it sustainable? Or is it just statistics? India must now focus on balancing ambition with equality and power with responsibility. So, yes, India has become the fourth largest economy in the world. It is a moment of pride, but also a moment of taking a pause. Because the real question is not how fast are we growing, the real question is who are we leaving behind? Are we building an India that is rich in numbers but poor in values? An India where skyscrapers touch the sky but the poor can't even touch a doctor? An India that makes billionaires but forgets its farmers? Let's not settle for GDP headlines. Let's aim for human development, health, security, justice, and equality for all. Because in the end, the true measure of a nation's greatness is not measured in the wealth that it creates, but the dignity it ensures for every citizen. If you found this video thought-provoking, don't forget to like, comment and share. Drop your thoughts below. Is India's rise inclusive or is it leaving too many behind? And for more such structured analysis and deep dives into India's most important issues, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. This is Harsh signing off. Until next time, stay informed, stay conscious.